welcome again to the Mississippi Family Homesteading live stream. Tonight we're talking about the best and worst animals to have on your homestead when you're starting out or your farm. So my name is Scott.
And I'm Tina. And so we're going to talk about that today. So one of the best animals you can get is when you're first starting out is to get chickens.
And you know that because you've got a lot of chickens.
Yep, 30. So I do have a lot of chickens. But that being said, you do want to get egg laying chickens and not meat birds, because meat birds entail a lot more than just, your chickens laying the eggs and you going out there to gather them. So just keep that in mind. If you're thinking about getting meat birds, I would suggest trying to get regular, just egg laying chickens at first, because the meat birds require some tools and some really kind of, you have to be willing to actually, take out that chicken.
Yeah, you got to make sure that you are going to be able to harvest those animals.
Yeah.
It may look easy, but a lot of times it's not, So I think you're right that egg laying chickens are probably I would think the easiest thing. They're probably the easiest to buy too.
They are the easiest to buy because most every supply store, whether it's a co-op or or the Tractor Supply, they sell the birds. And nowadays there's one of those everywhere in most every town. And another thing that they provide is the compost, the fertilizer for your garden. You use those pine shavings after they've broken down some and put them in your garden, and they free to use for fertilizer. But don't, my suggestion is don't get the meat birds the first thing either, because they require some tools and some special skills to kind of, learn how to harvest those meat birds. But
and a lot of research.
definitely the egg laying chickens. The one thing though is one con, I guess you would say, about having them is that they are messy, and you do have to provide a safe area for them. You have to invest in that for those chickens.
Yeah.
So
now another thing you can get on another animal is rabbits.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't think about getting rabbits, but you can eat rabbits just like you can.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that's got rabbits for meat, but they're just too cute to eat.
Yeah. But if you're gonna grow them for meat, just know, at first I would do it just for your family. You know, if you're gonna sell them for meat, that takes probably a state license, some kind of license to be able to sell that meat from your farm. And I guess that would be for any animal that you're selling for meat.
Even with eggs, there's some restrictions on selling eggs.
Right.
You need to, every state probably is different. So you need to look at those codes before you sell anything. So
right.
This is, mainly we're talking about animals that you use for your family.
Right. On your farm. But if you like the taste of rabbit, I think down here in the South we don't eat rabbit very much. But I think up
now they used to hunt rabbit a lot around here, but I don't know if they still do anymore.
I don't either. I think a lot up north maybe more people eat rabbits. We'd love to know if you've ever ate rabbit, or if you're raising rabbits on your farm. Let us know in the comments below. But that's one thing that you can get and eat. A lot of people say that they love the taste of the rabbit. And I have had rabbit, but I think I was young when I ate it. From what I remember, it tasted pretty good.
Because we used to go rabbit hunting. I don't remember ever tasting the rabbits. But I mean, but there are some that you can raise for meat. And there's a lot of people that do that. They put them in the freezer for meat.
Now, one thing, a good thing about the rabbits is they're quiet. They're not quite as loud as the chickens are.
Yeah.
So they're kind of quiet, and you can kind of stack their cages up. And also, you use their droppings for fertilizer too in the garden. Rabbits are not like chickens. They don't eat any kind of bugs or anything like that. They're all grass or hay or anything like that they can eat. They don't eat any kind of meat like chickens do. And so their droppings would make pretty good fertilizer for your garden also.
But now you talking about rabbits are not loud. Now chickens are not loud if you don't get a rooster, are they?
Well, they're loud sometimes. They kind of cut up sometimes, but most of the time, unless you have a
That's right. When they lay an egg,
and they're laying an
they
egg,
make their drama about it.
They are, especially the first time they ever lay an egg. They kind of get dramatic about it. So, but it's just if you're willing to make the effort to harvest those rabbits and do that for your family, that's great. But if you're going to sell them, that's the con of raising rabbits. If you're going to sell those for meat, then you got to get the license to do that and do some research about that before you do that.
If you buy a bunch of rabbits, you need to make sure that you can harvest them.
Yeah,
if that's
so
why you're buying them.
You think of them as livestock, not little pet bunnies. That you take care of.
Now, another animal that you can start a farm out is goats.
Yeah, but you want to get the smaller goats, like the dwarf goats or the pygmy goats. Those are probably better to start off with if you're first starting off with them. Actually, the pygmy goats, they produce milk, and you can milk them. Instead of getting a cow to milk, you get a goat to milk. So that's just one good thing about the smaller ones, and they don't actually require as much room, and your fence may not have to be quite as high, as it would be for a larger goat. But
they are hard to, aren't they? Don't they get out and go everywhere?
Yes, they can get out and go everywhere. So you'd
have to make sure you have a good fence,
right, to put them in. They will kind of clean up an area if you want to put them in a fenced area where you need some cleaning up done, like they'll eat leaves off the trees.
Do they eat kudzu?
I don't know.
I know down in the South we have a lot of kudzu. I don't know. Do you have it up north a lot?
Well, I don't know.
I know it's taken over down.
It really
down
has.
here.
It's awful.
But by the way, if you're starting a farm out, let us know in the comments below if you've got animals yet and what animals you do have.
Another thing that you can do with your goats is you can produce cheese out of that
goat milk.
Out of that goat milk, yeah, and you can make soap. I don't know if you know that or not, but some people will make that soap and sell it. A lot of people use that to make soap. So that's interesting, but that would be something that you would have to research and if you wanted to sell or whatever. And research that.
Now, another thing you can get is pigs. By
the way, pigs eat kudzu.
Do they?
Yes, they eat kudzu. They'll clean up any area. So they're good if you're wanting to clean up a garden area and get it ready for, fertilizing. You get you a electric fence to put around them and keep them, in an area, and they'll clean up that area, and they will eat kudzu. They absolutely will.
But they do get big.
They do get big. But if you grow just one and send it to be processed, that can provide food for your family for, a whole year. So that's one good thing about them. If you wanted to get a few pigs and, be willing to send those to the processing plant. And now I have seen some homesteaders, like get together and process their own hog or pig, which is what they did in the old days. They would all get together and process that pig.
Yeah.
But, if it was me and you, we'd probably just send them to the processing plant and put that meat up in the freezer.
Yeah, because you really have to know
what you're doing.
What you're doing to process a pig. I'm not saying you can't do it, but you need to do a lot of research and know, which parts to cut off and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But a pig would make some, good meat. But
now the con about the pigs is that they're very messy. If you're going to have them in a pasture area, they're just going to make a mud hole out of that pasture.
It's definitely a animal that you would need out in the country.
Yes, yes.
You're not going to want one of those in the city.
Right.
Chickens you could probably get by with in the city, but not a pig.
Right. And you want a separate area maybe in your pasture for the pigs. You don't want them mixed up with your cows because, they just make a mud hole, wherever they are. And they eat, grass and whatever and dig it up and root it up. And it's just dirt there and not your grass.
They make them big stinky mess.
Yes, they
You
do.
know, so
They do.
they
And
are.
you'd have to worry about what to feed them also. I mean, they'll eat scraps and eat most anything, but you would have to keep them fed.
Yeah.
So
So, all right, another one to start a homestead is ducks,
yeah.
and
So
ducks do
most
make meat birds too, right?
yes, you can eat duck. A lot of people hunt duck. You can raise ducks for meat, but also you can eat their eggs just like you can the chicken eggs. They're bigger and they're actually richer, and they taste a little bit. I don't know how to explain it, but they taste richer than the chicken egg does. We actually have two ducks. We used to have four, but now we have two ducks. They're both male. So obviously we don't get the eggs from them, but they do go around the yard and they eat slugs and things like that out of the garden. So ducks enjoy eating that, and they're not quite as, I guess, destructive as the chickens because they're on the ground eating those slugs and stuff and not really reaching up to eat all the stuff off of the.
So those animals are probably more, would you say, the easier
Yeah,
animals?
I would say those are the easier ones. Now, the other thing though about ducks are they are also messy, and they have to have water. They have to have like a kiddie pool or somewhere, a pond or something where they can go get in the water. So they do make a mess also. They'll make a mud hole just like the pigs do.
So those are the kind of easier ones. Now, if you're getting into some harder animals that take a lot more room, and
Mm-hmm.
now they are rewarding to have when you put them in the freezer, but that's cows.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you
So
got to
how?
really know what you're doing to have some cows.
Yeah. Especially if you're planning on, having a bunch of them. You got to have an area for them. You got to have a fenced area. You got to make sure that you have that hay for the wintertime and some, a large enough area for they'll be able to graze. Some people might just have a couple of cows to milk, and that's okay. They don't take up quite as much room as, the meat cows. So that's just something to think about too. You could have a cow and, milk it and use it for your milk on the
I'd
homestead.
like to have a milk cow.
Yeah.
But you have to milk them every day, correct?
Yes, you have to
So
milk them
you
every
have
day.
to make sure you can dedicate the time to do it every
Yeah.
day. But cows are probably, this is the list of the worst ones to start with now, and that one of them is cows. Another one that people think they may get because they're real pretty, and that's peacocks.
Yeah, but they actually are the worst. They're loud, and they actually sound like a person screaming or something. They may be pretty to look at. They don't really help your homestead, I guess, a lot. They're just more there to look at. So if you're looking for something just to look at, that's fine, but they are actually one of the worst ones, and they can get a little bit aggressive too. The peacocks can. And they don't respect like a fenced in area. If you're going to have a peacock, you got to have a whole fence, a cover and everything for the peacock because it's going to wander around. It's not going to just stay in a fenced area because, they can get out of those fenced areas.
Another animal close to it that would be my least favorite to have, I think, but it's good guard, but it's geese.
Yes. So geese are they attack other animals, and even I don't know. We go to the lakes and stuff where they
Yeah.
have the geese, and they'll try to attack you even there. Just if you're just standing there, they'll come up and try to attack you, and so they're very aggressive. Now, some people who have chickens have just one goose to guard their chickens. If they're free ranging their chickens and they don't have a covered area, they will get a goose.
Yeah, that is a good,
Yeah,
good
yeah,
thing to
they
have
will get a
because they are a
goose.
guard.
Yeah, they're a guard animal, and they'll protect your chickens. If they're out there, they'll attack anything that tries to attack the chickens. They kind of look out for them, I guess. So if you are raising a bunch of chickens and they're out in an open area or a field, it's good to have a goose, to watch over them, but just one goose, not, a whole flock of them. So don't get a whole flock of geese. It's just not a good animal to start out with.
And then the final one on our list of the bad ones is too many roosters. You
Yeah.
know,
And they
if
are bad. They are mean sometimes.
roosters do get pretty mean. We had one that was he got pretty aggressive,
It
but
did get aggressive. We would, I mean, it was very mean. It would attack you every time you went outside. It would attack the dog. It just would attack everything and was really, really aggressive. And we actually let that rooster out of the pen because we thought that something would, maybe happen to it because we didn't really want to kill it ourselves. So it ran around the yard for what, 3-4 years,
yeah.
and then finally,
Sadly, something got it.
yeah, it
We
did.
did come. We were attached to that. Some of us more than others were
Yeah, I
attached
wasn't
to
real attached, but he was real attached to it.
it.
But something finally did get that rooster.
Yeah,
No, and you can have too many roosters. Like you don't need a whole bunch of roosters. You really don't need but one or two, according to how many chickens you have. But you're supposed to have one rooster to 10 hens.
right.
So you don't need, a bunch of roosters. Like our silkies out there, we've got to do something with our roosters. There's too many roosters in there.
Yeah. And
So-
another one going back on the easy list, if you have a pond, fish is, I
You know
think that'd be
what?
considered an animal. If you have a pond, they're real easy. You just, you'll find your co-op or, they'll
Supplier, yeah.
fish, the fish truck will come every once in a while and you can, that's what we did. We've got catfish there. And so we
And
want to,
actually,
if we need,
according to how many you get, they'll actually bring them to your pond.
yeah,
for
if you
a
have a
certain
big
amount.
pond, they will, but
Yeah, yeah.
ours really wasn't that big, so
How many did we get to begin?
we got 500 or
400 or something like
maybe
that.
so.
Yeah, but if you've got a huge pond and you want more than that, sometimes you can get them to bring the fish and put them in your
Yeah,
pond.
we've probably got 30 or so, but I mean they're like
They're gigantic, yeah.
that
And then
big.
we've got brim in there. There's a
Yeah.
bunch of brim in our
But
pond.
if we had an emergency or something, we've got plenty of fish to keep us
Fed.
fed for a while.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
That's another animal. If you have a plate, a nice sized pond to keep them in. So
Yeah.
um,
Which is another thing, we talked about the other day that you look for on a homestead anyway. If you're looking to start one or buy one, kind of look for a place that has some water on it, like a pond, and you can stock that pond and have those fish in there.
And I would say if you're starting a homestead and you're thinking about getting animals, whatever you do, it's best to start small and then work up.
Yeah.
Don't go buy 30 chickens at first. You might want that, but go ahead if it's your first time with chickens or whatever animal, get used to it and make sure that you're starting small. That way you learn how to do things with them. You learn a lot, and then that way the mistakes aren't that big
Right.
when you
When you first start out.
when you first get
Now,
it.
some other animals you might want to think about if you kind of get into homesteading is maybe some turkeys or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't think about turkeys.
Yeah, you can get a turkey or two and harvest them for Christmas or
Well,
for
that's true.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, turkeys. There are people that harvest turkeys. So
Yeah, so that's another thing that you might can think about. But again, I wouldn't start out with a turkey. Just like the meat chickens, don't start out with those, but those would be a good animal to have. On
So the
homestead.
number one that you would say start out with would be what?
Yeah, just the chickens.
Just chickens.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay. Hopefully that's been helpful to you. This is our nightly live stream on homesteading. We'll be back tomorrow night to talk to you again. So if you're watching this on the replay and you have animals, please let us know in the chat what animals you have. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching.